Hey crafters! Welcome back to another thrift flip adventure. Around here, we love thrifting, but as many of you guys know, you never know what you're going to find at the thrift stores. You don't know if you're going to find anything that fits your body, or your sense of style, or even really your lifestyle. Sometimes you really score and you find something that is just right for you. And other times, seems like a lot of times, those clothing items need a little bit of DIY love to thrift flip them or upcycle them into something that's just right for you. In today's video, I will show you some of my recent thrifting adventures and all the wild and wonderfully weird things I found out there in the wild. And then I'll show you the items that I actually ended up purchasing. Will they be ready to go as is? Will they need a little bit or a lot of crafty DIY love? We're gonna find out. Join me on the thrift flipping adventure today. Let's first dive in on some of that thrift store footage, and I'll show you what I buy, and we're gonna figure out what I'm gonna do with it. Let's dive in and let's get started. Well, isn't that cute? I got really excited when I found this cotton nightgown at the thrift store. I don't always check the PJs, to be honest, but I'm really glad I did this time because this is gonna be, I think, a really fun project because, I mean, are you seeing this potential? The flowers, the cute buttons. Let's take a look up close. Okay, our brand. Adana sleepwear. And it is 100% cotton, which can be hard to find, and I really enjoy that. We've got some cute buttons. We've got this interesting yoke. Got a little bit of lace in there. Okay, that's cute. That's cute. Buttons only go down part way. I will say we have a lot of lace going on. I feel like the lace might be a little much. Interestingly, we also have like some navy lace on the inside, I think is part of like the seam binding, but then we have the white lace on the outside. And I'm thinking the white lace may be a little much, maybe a little too cutesy. If we take that off, maybe it'll make everything, I don't know, look a little more like a dress. We'll see. So we just have an A-line skirt. It's not very full. It's also not very long. It's actually kind of on the short side for me. And interestingly, the fabric, kind of hard to see. The fabric's really pretty darn sheer. So, might have to do something about that. Or definitely wear a slip under it. I'm not sure. I'm thinking about maybe changing the length a little bit. Maybe add something to the length. I don't know. I think we definitely have some potential here. So my first thought is remove the lace if I can. And then maybe add like a waistline. Maybe like a channel for elastic. And then scrunch in the waist a little bit. Let me show you what I'm talking about. You see what I'm talking about? Like if we added a little tube of fabric right there at the waist and add like some really thin elastic into that tube to then like shrink in the fabric, then we could create kind of a waistline. And I feel like if we did that and maybe remove a little bit of the lace going on up here, I think we could take it from cutesy nightgown to cutesy sundress. I think we should do it. Let's dive in. I think I'm going to start on the lace and then we'll go from there. Okay, things are looking a little better without that lace. That's fantastic. Of course, we do still have this navy blue lace on the sleeves. It seems to be sewn into the seam, finishing the armhole. So I don't want to mess with that. That sounds like a pain. And actually, I'm enjoying this navy. Like, it's a little bit, little simpler than the white stuff, and it's navy, so you don't really notice it very much. So no problem there. Okay, next we need to talk about like adding a lining and a waistband and all those ideas. Let's look at the sketchy sketch. Okay, let's start with just our basic outline of our dress. I've tried it on, and the sheerness of the fabric is only really noticeable on the skirts. When the fabric is close to your body at the top, you can't notice that you can see through it. You can't really see through it, but it's when the light shines through it on the skirt that it's pretty noticeable. So I'm thinking add a lining to the skirt. While I'm doing that, I would love to create some kind of a channel for elastic near the waistband. And then the original dress is also a little bit short, so maybe add a little bit of length with that lining skirt. Okay, so then we come over here to making just a super basic skirt. The skirt's really going to need to follow the skirt of the dress, so I might make it just a tiny bit smaller than that. I'll probably just trace the skirt itself and then try to match that. Just sewing side seams, super basic, maybe fold under the raw edge at the top. Of course, I'll have to hem it as well, but also making it a little longer than the skirt of the dress. Hey, so then if we looked at the inside of the dress, theoretically, this would be that skirt lining that I would hopefully be adding. It would be longer than the dress, and I would need to sew it to the dress at, I'm thinking kind of like high waistline, like right above my hips. I would sew it in to the dress, but then I would also add another line of stitching a little below that, and then I could add some elastic into that channel. Hey. Okay, stay with me here. So got a little more detail here, but theoretically, if we did that, potentially we could have a contrasting lining skirt showing through. We would have our waistline. Maybe we would need to add some of this like lining fabric around the neck to bring that up, because I am thinking of using a contrast. So if we're doing it, we might need to add it a couple places. We might also need to use a belt. I don't know. Maybe the neckline isn't absolutely necessary if we add a belt of the contrasting skirt fabric. We'll see. I think this is going to take a little bit of time, but this could be pretty cute, right? Okay, let me show you the fabric I'm thinking of using. Well, I went through my fabric stash and I found this remnant of like cotton. I think it's chambray, cambray. Help me out. Which one is it, guys? I don't know. It is really lightweight, but it's got this kind of slightly nubbly feel to it. It's a great denim blue. And I think it's a nice weight to go with the really lightweight dress, but also I'm enjoying the blue and kind of like the denim-y blue of this with the floral print of this is definitely working some country cutesy vibes. So I think this will be a perfect. And now I need to iron this though. And then we can hopefully trace and cut out our skirt. Okay, well, I've got my skirt dress. Got my dress folded in half so I can use it as a pattern. I also tried the dress on and marked about where I want my skirt / elastic band to be. And I'm going to do it basically like right above my hips. So that mark's going to help me figure out how long I need to make my skirt and kind of where to start tracing the dress to make the skirt pattern. Okay, we've got our skirt lining pieces cut out. Might have noticed I added a little extra to the top there because I will want to roll under that raw edge before I sew it onto the dress, and I wanted to add a little extra because I'm going to have that channel for the elastic, blah, blah, blah. Of course, I added about 5 inches beyond the nightgown to the bottom here. I wanted it to be about 4 inches longer than the dress, and I need to add some extra for hemming, so I did 5. And then you might have noticed I added about 1/2 inch of seam allowance there on the edge I don't want to make it bigger than the skirt, but I don't want to make it smaller than the dress either, because I need it to fit inside. So hopefully that will be okie dokie and that'll allow me to fit it inside. I can also gather this skirt piece a little bit as I'm sewing it in if I need to. But I think our next steps are to add the skirt on top of the skirt and sew up the side seams, and then fold under and stitch down maybe a nice little edge there at the top. Then I can measure where I need it to go in my dress and sew it in. Let's dive in and get sewing. Well, guys, we've got our skirt lining in there. Whoop. And our elastic as well. Just a couple things as we've done that. Oh, and I did sew the little gap in the stitching where the elastic went. I sewed that up as well. But just a couple things before we keep going. I got to admit, I actually made the skirt lining a little too narrow. Not quite sure how I did that. I think when I was using the dress to kind of make a pattern, I didn't smooth it out entirely enough. And yeah, I definitely should have made it a little wider at the top. Maybe almost by about an inch. And it's really okay to have extra fabric in that lining because you can just gather it and it will be on the inside. As is, I had to make like a little tuck in the dress fabric as I was sewing the lining to it, and that's okay because we're gathering everything, but would have been nice to avoid that. So yeah, make your lining a little bigger and it's okay. Also, you guys might have noticed for this top edge of the skirt that I like folded under and stitched, I should have done that on the other side of the fabric so that the raw edge was snuggled in between the two pieces of fabric. Yeah, as is, I decided not to fix it and then tried to do a little tiny zigzag stitch over the raw edge to try to keep this fabric from fraying like crazy. Yeah, don't recommend that. Probably better to do it the right way first. But anyway, okay, now that I got that off my chest, let's look at this from the other side out. All right, well, this is definitely looking more like a dress. Yay! Okay, we have some more steps left to do. I don't think I'm going to do a sash. It would look nice, but I'm kind of, after trying on the dress, I realize that I don't really want the waist like too cinched in. You might notice I didn't actually cinch it in too much with the elastic because the top of the dress is kind of poofy with that yoke and kind of like gathered fabric under the yoke. And if the waist was too tight, it kind of made the fabric poof out and mushroom a lot. So I tried to, add a waist, but make it really loose so that it would kind of balance the poof a little bit. You'll see when I wear it. So I don't think a really cinchy sash right there is quite the look I'm going for. So instead, I think I am going to add some bias binding around the neckline, make some double fold bias tape with, of course, our contrasting fabric. Now, I've just been looking up a YouTube video on how to do that. So I will share that video with you and kind of briefly show you what I'm doing as I figure out how. Here we go. Phew. Well, guys, we got some double fold bias tape, finally. And I have thoughts. First of all, I cut out way more than I needed, used a piece of fabric that was way bigger than necessary. But I've got to say, like, the pinning and the sewing of the little pieces together kind of boggled my brain. I had to rewatch the video multiple times. You've got to have like at least a little bit of extra fabric showing like the little triangles on both sides. Like there's a little bit of extra. There's going to be some extra. That was one thing. And then also I put some pins kind of in a really weird way to show where the stitching would go. You've got to stitch from like the corner, like where this little extra triangle and this piece meet, to the other one. And it needs to really line up so that when you open this up, these edges mostly line up. Oh man, I was getting that wrong so many times. Had to experiment a lot. For me, this was like barely a quarter of an inch from there. But honestly, I feel like every time I would pin one of these together, I would get out the ruler and the fabric marking pen and mark. Kitty corner to kitty corner, just to get it right, because I kept getting it wrong and was confused. So Anyway, enough said. Now we need to get some of our bias tape going around the neck. I think I am going to first stitch it onto the inside. Or no, let's see. I think I want to stitch first from the outside so I can then fold it over to the inside, and then I'll tack it down by hand. Let's turn this guy right side out. Okay, let's see if I'm doing this right. I am not going to do this chunk where the button is. Obviously, I'll go around it everywhere else. So let's see. Get that part. See if I'm doing this right here. Okay, so I'm going to open up my bias binding. I want to be able to stitch in this ditch or this fold right there. Let's see. Fold this edge over. Oh, he's a little weird, so let's trim him just a little bit. Scissors. Scissors. Never where you need them to be, are they? Okay. Square him up just a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna give him a nice little folded over edge. And I'm gonna use some of my bias binding clips. I'm gonna clip this all the way around the neckline, and then I will stitch in that little crease that I've made. And when I'm done, say if I was stitching there, I should be able to flip this guy over the edge, tuck this guy underneath, and I'll just hand stitch that down underneath to just make that easier to deal with. Whew. Okay, let's switch on over to time lapse and do that. And with that, you guys, we have ourselves a nightgown turned into a dress. Yay! All right, I will admit this project took me longer than I had first envisioned, but I really like how it turned out. I think this skirt extension is actually really darn cute, and it is still very breezy to wear. Like, the fabrics are such a nice lightweight that, you know, it doesn't make the skirt too heavy or too warm. Also really like the added length. That's just a super bonus for me. Stretchy waistband. I didn't make it too cinched. I left it real breezy, and it's pretty darn comfy. I am really glad I added the homemade bias tape around the neck, even though that took forever. And it did take a while to hand stitch it down on the inside as well. I will admit that, but it definitely helps make our skirt extension a little more intentional. And yeah, it's real cute. You might have noticed that I also had to remove a button from the very top of the placket. I had to do that just so I could get my presser foot onto the bias tape when I was first sewing it on to the front using my sewing machine. So I do need to replace that button. I probably won't get that sewn back on before I show you this dress in action, but just letting you know, I need to fix that. But speaking of dresses and outfits, it is time to show you what this looks like in action. So I'm going to put an outfit together. While I'm doing that, hey, give this video a big thumbs up. And consider subscribing for fun stuff from Partners in Craft. We are always up to something around here, and I hope you join us for more adventures. Shout out to all of our subscribers. Thank you guys for sharing the love. Okay, it is outfit time. Let's head outside and get started.